What's going on, investors? Dust here from Investments, and today is April 6th, 2023, and we're going to look at some stocks, some cryptos, all the good charts, and we're going to see where we're at, where our trades are falling right now, and how Bitcoin's playing out, because that's the big mama that's going to control everything right now. We need her to do well. I'm going to adjust the camera here. Okay, so we're going to start there. We're going to start with Bitcoin. Just see how this is going here. And the way we've had this drawn for a couple of weeks now, since March 16th, is we had this nice parallel channel that we were kind of following along and previously, and we had broken up to the upside, and realistically we're staying above there. So you're not looking bad. Looking like you're continuing to stay above there. I've had some people draw this as a wedge. I've had some people draw this as a horizontal, or a rectangle. Either way you draw it, still looking like you're okay, because you are making a higher low each time, even though this one came relatively close. Your momentum looks like it's also about to shift on the MACD. Your RSI is almost dead center. So what you really need to see is you need to start seeing some green volume coming and take us above that $29,000 level, where you're just you're pinched between 2 points right now. It's going to happen, especially around critical levels like this. And why is 29,000 important to us? Well, you just have multiple touches along this line of previous support dating back all the way to January of 2021. So when you broke to test these all-time highs, you know, the $60,000 range, each time you pulled back down to this $29,000 level. And well, I guess we got a commercial going on. It's outrageous. All right. Anyways, so it's still looking good. We were saying that there's potentially two different paths that we could see happen here, where we do a pullback down to about 25,000 and then continue to bounce off of there. So you would think of it as like dropping down to bounce off the trampoline before continuing higher. Otherwise, we might just get enough momentum to take us above that level. And realistically, I think there's enough fear in the market, and fear around the US dollar, and fear around just uncertainty about financial situations, like the banks just not functioning real well. You know, their money's tied up in treasuries that are basically underwater. So there is a lack of liquidity in banks right now. So I could see people moving to something that they control and be their own bank. There's never been a stronger fundamental case for something like Bitcoin. So I think we are going to see that play out. And I honestly am starting to believe that this might be another massive bull run for crypto and Bitcoin specifically. Even if it's not, like we've been saying, you got a potential to at least make a nice bounce, right? So from the 60% level, if you were to just do a fib to see where the 618 will take you, you're talking about around $49,000, around $50,000 to round it. From 30 to 50, that's a pretty decent gain. And not only that, but if you see that gain happen on Bitcoin, you're going to see crypto in general just kind of explode like we always have. So that is our analysis of Bitcoin. Still looking like it's going to continue on higher, still looking decent. Everything else looks like it's kind of pulling back, but not too drastically, and it looks like just kind of resetting, right? The only one that stands out to me that's not, and we're gonna open up CoinMarketCap actually, because let's take a look at past 24 hours, see if anything. Luna Classic, yeah, I'm gonna pass on that. I'm not even gonna entertain the idea of that. Nothing has gone up too crazily. So we're gonna look at Doge, and we're gonna look at ICX. And ICX is one that we've had on our watch list, but did not get into this trade, unfortunately. And really, really regret that, but sometimes, good night. Sometimes you do the analysis, but you fail to make the trade, and now it's too far gone. There's nothing that I can do at this point. I have to wait. Like there's no trade to be made. It's already moved, right? I missed this one. So what we need to do is we need to analyze additional ones and try to find these ones that are gonna happen like this, right? We had it on our radar. It was on our watch list. We just didn't make the trade. And one of the things we saw was, okay, you're making a higher low than your previous all-time low of January 2020, and you had a pretty massive bounce off of there. So we were identifying the key levels, we were identifying the breakout, but then we had that massive pullback, and it just wasn't showing the strength that we wanted, which is why we didn't get in there. Regret it, but what are you gonna do? I think realistically there's gonna be plenty more opportunities like this in this upcoming run, and I don't know, I think this is just one of the ones that's, you know, a first mover in this situation. Doge being a similar situation where you are kind of a first mover. Oh, this chart is whack. Hold on, let me open a different Doge chart. And I like to look at the US dollar, just because when you look at the Bitcoin prices, the verse Bitcoin pairs, it's just so hard to do any sort of analysis on it, because it's so hard to figure out what price you're even talking about, right? Like you could do the charts, but I'd like to know exactly what I'm looking at. One of the things we looked at last time we were making this chart is actually, again, you're getting this stair stepping up where your highs are getting lower, and we were backdating it to as far as this low of January 2021, where you got your low there, your low there, your low there, your low there, and every time it's touching this, it's just kind of continuing to make moves, and it's just rejecting off that low and just continuing to stay above it. So really strong continued higher lows, and what that tells you is that something, someone, somewhere is accumulating this, right? And why, who knows? It's Dogecoin, but realistically this is poised for another breakout, and this chart is actually looking pretty primed. You had almost a full reset off that recent pump. Yeah, you're past the 618, so fully primed, ready to reset and re-go on Dogecoin, but you might still get a little bit of pullback. Looks like the 200-day moving average is holding, which is a good sign, but you could potentially see a pullback to this green line. So what does that look like? Oops, wrong one. Let's get the date and price. God, you grabbed the wrong indicator. Potentially a 15% loss if you were to enter now, but it's not a bad spot just because you're riding that 200-day moving average, and this is just poised to rip, right? A lot of these cryptos, alts, and some stocks are even ready to go. So we were saying that this has strength, right? You get that long-term upslope where these lows are just stair-stepping higher, right? I want to show you one that I am just waiting for the pop to happen, because I think this is going to be massive when it does. Don't mind the messy chart. Last time we were here, we were drawing circles all over because we wanted to show every line touch, because we really did some in-depth analysis on this one, saying this one looks almost the best out of all of them right now. And the reason being is just this massive green line just continually stair-stepping and building these higher lows every single time. And what happens after you bounce off that green line? Well, you get a massive run to the upside. So every time you've touched this green line, you've had a nice size run. This one being the smallest of them, and it's still a 550% run. Not too bad. So what happened? What are we expecting to happen now that we touch this again? Well, we're expecting that we'll have another pretty substantial run. And realistically, we've been saying that this run, this altcoin run or Bitcoin run or whatever, crypto run or investment cycle, a lot of people are looking to invest into the quote-unquote blue chips of crypto, right? The main players, the ones that have been around for a while, the Bitcoins, the Ethereums, the XRPs, unfortunately, of the world, the Doge, the ones that have been here, kind of had their, you know, they've built their foundations, right? They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And Litecoin happens to be one of those. And it has pretty strong utility as well, just because it is a duplicate of Bitcoin, but it's faster, right? So I used to use it back in the day when Bitcoin was congested, just to make transactions, because it was cheaper, faster, and so much easier to just manage. But what I'm trying to get at is this is a main player in the game, and right now it's looking so fantastic, ready to go. The local areas here aren't looking as hot as some of the other charts. Like Ethereum looks much better than this. However, the macro with this big time scale is what really matters to us, and realistically this is where you're going to see these big moves come, right? So like I said, this little one here is 500% gain. So still waiting to see this, identified it, could get in a trade, I think, at a reasonable level. But you got to do your own research on this. I think realistically we could see a pullback to this red line at $81.67 before you continue higher. It would correlate to the 200-day moving average and this green supply line that's continuing to upslope. You are making lower highs, which is never a good sign, but sometimes you just need to pull back and stage higher before you continue on. Realistically, you're making higher lows on the shorter term, right? Which is good. So not looking terrible, not looking really juicy on the very near term time frame. MACD is showing that momentum is shifting. Not great. So maybe you wait for a little bit of a pullback before you make an entry. But I want to emphasize the macro structure of this just looks fantastic. And sometimes it's okay to have different strategies for different things. Like there is plays that I have that are purely fundamental. There are plays that I have where it's like, hey, I want to own a piece of this company. There's plays that I have that are macro intensive or micro intensive. So important to define that, like, and why you're in that strategy, right? And what you're doing there. So while we are here, let's take a look at EOS. Was one that was looking fairly good too. And the reason is you're at all-time lows and you're trying to get to this level here, and actually you've bounced off of it since then, and you're retesting this this low from February 18. And then look at that massive gap, right? And they say gap fills. Well, that's totally filled. So yeah, this is one that's looking like it has yet to start, right? So these are the ones we kind of want to identify where it's like, okay, well, not looking so bad. Starting to shape up, make the indicators that we want to have happen, right? You want to get above this level here, because that correlates to your low here before you just had that massive gap up. Also correlates to this March 2020 pullback where it was tested as support, plus tested as resistance as you broke down in May of 2022. Again, another touch in July of 22. Pretty important ice line, or pretty important, that's not even the one I just drew. Sorry, that is at $1.42. The one we're talking about right now is $1.21 that you need to get above before you can test that. So we're still a little early to this, but starting to shape up. So these are the things you want to do, right? You want to identify these about now. Personally, this is how I would play this. I wouldn't probably make this trade until we start seeing. You're already broken out against the local high. All right, I'm gonna flag this one. I need to come back to it because it's looking about ready. It's looking pretty juiced. Ethereum Ethereum. Where the hell do I have Ethereum? There's one up. Identified it back off this green line as actually before we were looking back when Bitcoin was collapsing, right? And we were saying, okay, we're gonna look for the ones that have bounced back like Bitcoin, right? So if you looked at the Bitcoin chart, when you had this massive rundown, Bitcoin kind of took off and you had like a 50% move over the week after that drawdown. We wanted to look and identify at coins that are doing something similar. Most of them had a very small gain compared to Bitcoin. Ethereum was one of the only ones that did substantially well. And you can see it, right? These massive green candles brought you back up to retest this red line, which happens to be the 236, and not even from the all-time high, just this conservative high at 3,600. So we identified it there, and we were saying, okay, this is the green line that you want to be above at 1711, right? Very important level to stay above, and you can see you pulled back to test it. And when you did the back test, you used it as a trampoline and you bounced higher, and you're continuing on right now. So you're in breakout. Well, you were broken out. You're kind of just playing right now. So a lot of times when you get these nice breakouts, you're going to get a little bit of a pullback. Let's see if this is correlating to any important levels. Nothing that stands out to me. So I think your next level is that $2,000. That's where you're going to be pushing. But we were saying our targets for this on the conservative level could be in this golden ratio zone, right? Between the 382, the 50%, and the 618. You're almost there. Like, you're at the 382 fairly quickly, right? Like nothing is standing in the way realistically of getting there. So yeah, Ethereum is looking like one of the better charts. Obviously not for an actionable trade right now, but just for continuation, right? And that's where we're going to get to soon, is where you look at something like this hasn't started, but when you look at something like Ethereum, it's already made its run, right? Like you're getting to points where you got to take profits and sell. Well, what do you do with that? Do you bring it back into something like this, or do you sit with cash on the sideline? That's kind of where we're going to have to make some determinations at that point. But these are the ones you want to identify, something like EOS before it pops, so you can see the gains, right? And you can get in low, buy low, sell high. That's the name of the game, obviously. So you want to be buying Ethereum back around here, which correlates to where EOS is around now. All right, so let's continue on. We did look at ICX and we said there's no action to be taken right now. We missed it, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. We had it even on our watch list and just didn't. Shiba's still looking like it's rolling around on that green supply line here. No action, but looking kind of poised to, well, I don't know, your MACD's telling you that it might be rolling over. Jeez. It's just like it doesn't have the amount of strength. Like you see Bitcoin had this massive run and then it's kind of playing around to try to like consolidate. Doge is having these massive pumps, and then Shiba's just kind of like, hey, I had that massive pump originally, but now I'm just kind of like fizzling out. Obviously at some point it's going to take off, right? The problem is there's nothing here technically for you to analyze, right? Like your next thing is like either these local levels or this low that you pulled back to at 1696. It's just there's not much you can do with that, and that's how a lot of these look. 0x is one that we identified as well because it was showing this nice formation at a important low, right? Like these are all-time low levels, and you bounce and did a full flipperooski at this point. So then you broke out above this nice formation, and you kind of been playing around in this range ever since then. In the past week or two, maybe a little bit longer, you've been broken out actually. So you had this nice green engulfing candle that took you higher and taking you to that 30-cent level, which is exactly where you want to be staying above, because there's multiple touches on this line as support or resistance, right? And last time you saw this hold this support, look at what happened. You had a massive run up. So definitely would like to see it stay above that 30-cent level. I think if it does, your next level you're talking about, if it were to continue, is at 40 to 45 cents. And from there, you got nothing. It's just straight up, straight down, it looks like to me. Is there any that you would like me to look at? Let me know in the chat. Would be happy to. XRP, one that we have been watching pretty closely. To be honest, I haven't made a trade on this. Just I don't know if it's for fundamental reasons. My emotions are getting me in the way of this one for me, and I know that one of the battles you have as a trader is, you know, battling your emotions tied to things. I just don't like XRP, but important that you can identify that your emotions are getting away. Some people can't even do that. Apologize for the ambulance. So important that I can identify that, but however, it's still getting in the way here. We had this nice parallel channel that we were sitting in, was doing well, had a nice breakout above there, and to be expected, a nice little pullback. And where are we at right now? We had this 53-cent level drawn in, saying this was a pretty important level to kind of hold above. However, I think you're going to have a little bit more of a pullback. You're pretty far off the 200-day, so you could pull back somewhere closer, maybe even extend this parallel channel, retest the top of it before continuing on higher. So I would not be taking action at that point on this. It's too far, but you could potentially see a trade happen where you get a little add-on trade where you have a nice pullback, and that would be your entry to get into this if you were looking to. T-Fuel, we were still looking at this one, and we had identified a small scale inverted head and shoulders here with a really scuffed up neckline, and we were saying that we don't really like that. However, we wanted to monitor it because there's just you're holding at this important level at almost 5 cents, where you kind of had multiple touches and this pullback, right? Like when you had your massive drawdown, this is where it stopped, and this is where it said, hey, there's strength at this level enough to kind of bounce. Granted, it didn't hold over the long term, but it did show some strength there, enough that it makes me consider this is an important level. And you got your inverted head and shoulders showing up. You have yet to put in your next neckline, and if you get a breakout above that neckline, I say you are in the trade. That is one trade that I will be monitoring and definitely taking. In fact, I'm going to put an alarm here, or alert, for that neckline. So I got it set right before, let's drop it down, and we're going to put it right here. So right before that neckline gets broken, we're going to do a nice little hop in that trade. Febreze, bro. Okay, thanks. I'm gonna turn this music off. This is outrageous. But we had identified a Fibonacci from, again, not the all-time high, a very conservative high at this 24-cent level, to this all-time low, or this local low, I'm sorry, that was placed in January of this year. And we were saying, from where we're at, you could potentially see to the 382, I'm talking the golden zone here, 94% gain, 121% gain, 163% gain. And these are just a very like common scrub retrace to this level, right? Like anywhere in here is very plausible to see. And we really like this one just because of that. Why can't I delete it? Just because of that massive percent gain. Like you don't see that every day. Like when you see a common retrace, especially not from the all-time high, but just a local high, you don't get 100% gain. Like that's just outrageous. One of the things that's happening with me again is my emotions get into this because I have fundamental knowledge on T-Fuel where I know it's a secondary layer token, but I'm not going to let it get in my way of this inverted head and shoulders. So yes, I'm going to wait for the breakout on this. I want confirmation, but look at these prices still. And if the inverted head and shoulders is to play out, the way you measure that is from the neckline to the top of the head, copy that, paste it, and then you place it onto the breakout, and that's where you get your price target. I got to do it the right way though, because you got to do it backwards when you do copy paste. So you're looking at a potentially 40%ish gain, which would take you to 9 cents and some change. And is there anything there? No. So I think realistically, you get that inverted head and shoulders showing up, you're not stopping there. There is no reason to until you get to at least the 382, which is at about 11 cents, which also correlates to the support that was tested back in January of 2022. It's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Theta is looking again like EOS. You're starting to get a nice formation, a nice turnaround, and honestly, this is one of the better looking charts right now for an early entry, right? Because you are not too far off this test of the low here. So you came back in January, start of the year, to test this level at 71 cents, which correlated to multiple touches back in 2020. That is your local low. That is your new low. And since then, you've bounced and turned around, put in another low at about 90 cents. And since then, you've just been staying above $1, just kind of hovering here, right? You come back to test it once, maybe even twice, you could say, and you've just been staying above it. And also, you've been staying above the 200-day moving average. This is looking fantastic for a nice trade. Holy shit. I don't know what just flew by on our street, but that was crazy. Yeah, I really like this. I'm going to add this to not only the watch list, but this. What do I have the green list for? Yep. Adding that to that, because we need to monitor that. And realistically, you get a breakout of this level at 129. You're not stopping there. You got nothing in the way until 172. And then after that, you're looking at 227. So from where we're at, 20% gain to the first stop, 61, and then 111 to the third stop. Ideally, you would probably at this point wait for a breakout above where we are at our local, or even above that green line, and you would trade this as a breakout trade. Not the best situation to trade, but you need some sort of indicator to trade on, right? And you have this I really like the way Theta's looking. Okay, we're gonna continue on. I don't want to get bogged down too much. Amazon. Now here's where I was saying, like, you have different baskets of portfolios, right? do you or do you not want to hold Amazon as just a company, right? Like, does it make sense to invest in Amazon? For me, the amount of boxes we freaking get, and I'm breaking down constantly, it makes sense to own a chunk of Amazon, right? Like, do I think in 10 years it's going to evaporate into nothing or continue to be a strong player in the market? Personally, I think Amazon owns a lot of the internet. They own a lot of e-commerce. I think they are going to be a very strong player into the future. Okay, so already telling me in that basket, I'm willing to put Amazon in it. And in fact, I already had some Amazon in it, but now we're getting some indicators that are telling us, well, this is also setting up to be a good entry point into Amazon and a good trade to have. So we have a couple things that are like converging together to show like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3 potentially things stacked on top of each other that are lining up to say, well, this might be the time to get into this trade. And in fact, you are still at an actionable level. So this trade is like a nice trade setup for right now. Like if someone was looking to make a trade, if one of my friends were looking to make a trade, this would be one that I'd say, hey, look at this one to analyze it, to see if it fits your criteria. You have broadening wedge forming, right? Where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 touches. That's what you need for a broadening wedge. And in fact, it didn't even touch the downside a third time, but it did hit this level at $80.50, which correlates to multiple touches, right? In March of 2018, you touched it as resistance, but then broke to the upside and touched it multiple times as support. And since the last time you touched it in March of 2020, you just kind of took off. And COVID crashed my ass. This is the COVID bull run of, March 2020 there for Amazon. And in fact, now you pulled back to that level and you're springing off there, showing that level still has validity, it still has strength, and it's enough of a trampoline, it has enough bounce to propel you higher. However, not only do you have that broadening wedge, not only do you have that bounce off that important level, you also have an inverted head and shoulders. And I'll show you on the next one what an inverted head and shoulders looks like after it played out. But you have your first shoulder, your head, which is higher, and then your other shoulder, and then you have a neckline, right? And in fact, you have not broken out of the neckline yet. We have it drawn in all willy-nilly. Here, let's make this a little prettier. That is your neckline. Breakout of that level would potentially run a 21% gain, and the way you would measure that is from your neckline to the top of your head. Copy that, paste it over here. However, you have a little bit of correlation at that level at 125, but the way you measure the broadening wedge is you go back to the start of the formation, right? And the start of the formation is at $170. So showing strength on this turnaround and showing that you could potentially see up to a 67% gain. Very nice. So now I showed you an inverted head and shoulders before it breaks out. I'm going to show you one that has broken out. And I got to actually zoom out on the time because it's played out over a much longer time frame where you had, actually monthly isn't good, let's do weekly. You had your shoulder, your head, and your other shoulder, and then your neckline. And in fact, this shoulder being higher than this other shoulder is significant in the fact that when it fell back down, it got buttoned up so hard that it was not able to even get down to this level again, right? That's a pretty bullish indicator there that this is going to spring out with some momentum. And in fact, it has. Like, look at this MACD. Ever since then, you've just been green, green, green ever since. And here was your neckline at $82.42. Since then, you've broken out and you're continuing. And what we said is we copied and pasted our neckline to the top of our head. Potential for a 57% gain, which is great. It takes us to that $130 level. Will it go higher? Well, this one has a weird formation here that we were saying ideally you'd like to see this be the turnaround. However, you have this green line that's kind of sloping since October of 07 that I think is going to be the temporary ceiling, right? And that's going to be a critical point to be watching to see when this happens. And realistically, this is a slow mover, so you could potentially see these kind of play out around the same time frame, or maybe like, yeah, by the end of this year, early next year, you get to that $130 level, and then you vibe for that green line, do a little test of it, and then maybe either fall back down, or if you break to the upside and back test, I could see you taking a nice run. So this is a trade that we're already in, already kind of active, already looking good. No action to be taken on that one right now, though. Nokia, yeah. We were looking at a very large inverted head and shoulders potentially showing up. Still waiting for it to test that neckline. That's all I'm saying on that one. Intel. This is a trade that we got into the past week, and we got into it at the breakout of this double bottom, right? So the level we were identifying is at $31.56. You had this test of this important level at $25.50, where I'm going to zoom out and just show you all the touches that it's made, dating back all the way to August 1997. That was weird to say. I want to say 2097, and I had to stop myself. Okay, 1997. Just an important line, right? Dating back so long that to see a turnaround here only makes sense. And you test it once, twice, and not only that, but 3 times. And then on top of that, you're kind of very faintly making a higher low off that recent one, and then you're just bouncing above that 200-day moving average. Looking very nice. So we caught it on the breakout. You've done a little bit of a pullback since then, kind of to be expected, right? Like when you get a nice breakout, a lot of times it will test that important level on the top side before continuing higher. So anticipating that to happen with Intel. That is kind of the end of my spiel here. Realistically, I don't have much more. This one's breaking down. Do not like to see that, and I should have gotten out of that trade, hopefully. Let's see how far PEMIF has pulled back. You're at the 618 right now, and you're probably bouncing right off there, so if someone was looking to get into PEMIF, that would be probably a good spot to potentially see the turnaround at that 618. Also correlates with these touches here. Yeah, I could see it having a good level right here just because this previous support. Okay. EOSE, we're still in that trend. Let's just analyze that real quick. See how it looks. Still making higher highs, still higher off your low, still above the 200-day, still looking like it's ripping. And this is one of the better looking trades. Like this one is fantastic right now. I don't think it's actionable for anyone to get into this trade now, but looking like it's continuing higher. PAA broken out again. Okay, I'm gonna end this here because I don't want to go too long, otherwise this will turn into an hour-long stream and we're already at 40 minutes. So if you are here watching, I hope you get some value out of this content. I hope you're enjoying your viewing. I don't know, man. If you got any that you want me to look at, let me know, please. If you got feedback for me, hey, maybe I'm doing a shitty job, tell me. I appreciate that. I gotta improve somehow. I gotta get more viewers in here. I understand like crypto and stock is not everyone's cup of tea right now because there's a lot of fear in the market. There's not a lot of people watching it, but this is the time to watch, right? When things are low, that's when you want to be buying. Let's look at this ING thing. That'll be the last one. ING USD. It's on Coinbase. It's probably got a shit chart on Coinbase, though. Dude, yeah. Okay, I need a different chart, though. Okay, that makes more sense. Even so, like, it's already too far gone. You don't buy something like this. No way. No way. Alright, till next time. Later.